Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Dinowrestler Yugioh deck profile for February 2021. It definitely has been a while since my last Dinowrestler deck, and not even updating it for Chaos Impact, which was the last time we received any support for the Dinowrestler cards, but I felt an update was due for the deck. A lot of changes have been made, still wanting to focus mostly on a pure Dinowrestler build with only a few other Dinosaur support cards for the deck. It's a really fun deck that focuses on fusion, synchro, and link summoning, having all the different options available to you in the deck, and some of our monsters in this deck even being affected by the ban list for some of their numbers. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Dinowrestler monsters, we're going to start off with one of the one-ofs and then get to the bigger numbers, and that is Dinowrestler Pankratops. This card's been at 1 on the ban list for a good while now. If your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only special summon Dinowrestler Pankratops once per turn this way, and with a quick effect, you can tribute one Dinowrestler monster, then target one card your opponent controls, destroy it, and you can only use this effect of Pankratops once per turn. So this card was basically staple in a lot of different Yu-Gi-Oh decks for the easy destruction special summon that this card have, but it's an extra bonus with the Dinowrestler deck for the fact that you can tribute your other Dinowrestler monsters and still keep the Pankratops on the field. If it was at 3, this would definitely be a lot stronger of a deck, but at least we have some other options for our special summons from the extra deck, including a fusion option, which makes the deck a lot easier to use for boss monster resources. But we'll have to see. Maybe one day we'll see Pankratops come off the list, and it'll definitely make the deck a lot stronger if we do. For some of the higher numbers for the Dinowrestlers, I also run 3 Dinowrestler Kaipoer Raptor. With this one, this attack position card cannot be destroyed by battle. If this card is attacked, you change it to defense position at the end of the damage step. And during the standby phase, if this card is in defense position, you can special summon one Dinowrestler Kaipoer Raptor from your deck. And you can only use this effect of Kaipoer Raptor once per turn. So that's why we're running 3 of this card. It's just an easy way to get resources onto the field. Even if you special summon back Kaipoer Raptor and you still have resources to special summon from the deck onto the field, it's a good way for you just to benefit from then going into some of your other summons from the extra deck, which include the link summon of our different Dinowrestler monsters. So 3 of this, just like I said, protection while in attack position, but resource building when in defense position. And I also run 3 Dinowrestler Marshall and Pello. During damage calc, if your other Dinowrestler monster battles an opponent's monster with an equal or higher attack, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard for that battle. Your monster cannot be destroyed, and the battle damage you take is halved. And when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish this card from your graveyard and add one Dinowrestler monster from your deck to your hand, except for Marshall and Pello. And you can only use this effect of Marshall and Pello once per turn. So it's search power. That's what I really like about this card. Not only will it protect your other Dinowrestlers on the field by reducing the damage and also protecting them from battle, but then when your opponent's monster attacks again, you'll be able to banish this card to search out any of the other resources you need for your Dinowrestlers in the deck. That's why I like running 3 of this card. It's just a good option to have. I considered running 1 for 1 to get it onto the field, but it was too much of an investment with other monsters in our hand to summon this than just to make up the resource again. So I just prefer to run the 3 of it and then benefit when this card's in the graveyard, or if I just had to summon it out for that play. For some of the lower numbers, because like I said, there's a good way to search out a majority of the different Dinowrestlers in the deck with some of our spells, I run 2 Dinowrestler Dinosaur. With this one, if this card's special summon, you can add one Dinowrestler monster or World Dino Wrestling from your deck to your hand. And during the end phase, if this card's in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, and your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can target one Dinowrestler monster in your graveyard except for Stegosaur and special summon it. So not only will you most of the time have less monsters than your opponent because you're going to be investing your Dinowrestlers in some bigger plays, but also just being able to special summon those resources makes this a great card to rely on. Being another level 4 monster means we can also use this card to summon out some of the other Xyz options that we have in the extra deck for our Dinosaur cards. And I also run 2 Dinowrestler Valionics. With this one, if your opponent only controls a monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. While you control a Link 3 or higher Dinowrestler monster, phase-up monsters you control are unaffected by the activated effects of your opponent's Link 3 or lower monsters. So it's good for the Link play. I know Links aren't as focused anymore with the different options for Master Rule 5, meaning you can use other extra deck monsters before having to invest in Link monsters, but it's still great for that summon. If we had more of a focus on a lot of different Link monsters, you can consider running this card card at 3. If you were to do so, you can reduce one of the other numbers for the Dino Wrestler cards I'm running in the deck for the additional 3rd copy. But most of the time, I just like to use it for that easy special summon, since our summon of our Link 2 is pretty vital for some of our other plays, which we'll go over when we get to the extra deck. But this card just helps for that setup that much easier with that special summon resource. I also run 2 Dinowrestler Yugioh. When your Dinowrestler monster inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can special summon this card from your hand in defense position. You can only use this effect of Yugioh once per turn, and your opponent cannot target other Dinowrestlers you control with card effects. So, good way to just set up more monsters for you to use main phase 2 with this special summon, and all you have to do is inflict battle damage to your opponent with some of the high attack point Dinowrestlers. It's that much easier to do, but like I said, in defense position, your opponent will just, attack over this card with their next turn. So you want to make sure you can at least have options to special summon with it, which you'll do most of the time with your Dinowrestler monsters and their Link summon, Fusion summon, or even for the synchro summon option that we have as well. And then I also run 2 Martial Ankylo for the Dinowrestlers. It's another banished effect from the graveyard, also with a quick effect from your hand or field of the graveyard for protecting the monster from being destroyed by battle and having the battle damage. And also, if it was sent there this turn, you can special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. So it's just another resource to bring back onto the field. It will banish again after the next use, but you want to mostly use it for the resource available to you to have just more summons from the extra deck onto the field. And then for some of the lower numbers for the Dinowrestlers, I run 1 Dinowrestler Menchi. I believe is how you pronounce it. Probably the more awesome names for sure with this one. I like how they're all based off of different fighting styles for sure. But if you control a Dinowrestler monster, you can normal summon this card without tributing. And during your turn, if your opponent special summons a monster while this card's in your graveyard, except during the damage step, you can target 1 level 4 lower Dinowrestler monster in your graveyard and special summon it, then add this card to your hand. I'm only running the 1 of this card for the fact that it's a recycle card that you can add to your hand, and then just re-normal summon again with this card, and then being able to add other Dinowrestlers back to your hand to reuse also. I also run 1 Capaptera, relying on this for if your opponent controls more monsters, being able to get rid of those resources while it's on the field. I run the 1 Dinowrestler Koalisalit. This is an option for the tuner. If you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. If summoned this way, it cannot be used as Link material except for the Link summon of a Dinowrestler monster, and you can only special summon Koalisat once per turn, once per duel this way. It's not once per duel. I knew there was a reason we're only running 1 of this card for that special summon option. And lastly, the 1 Martial Anga for during damage calc, having the destroy by battle and damage half as well. And once per turn during the end phase, if this card's in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, activate this effect, and your opponent controls more monsters than you can special summon it. So all these one-ofs just rely more on resources that you have readily available, or just playing off of the cards your opponent has. So that's why they're all one-ofs. They're all searchable with some of our other cards. And if you wanted to increase the number of Valionics in the deck, you can take out one of these cards. I recommend keeping the tuner though, because it's the only tuner we have for our synchro play. And then for the rest of the monster support in the main deck, I just run the 3 Miscellaneousaurus. Like I said before, I wanted to focus just on a Dinowrestler build. I find it to be a lot more fun that way than having to focus on some of the other Dino support. But with Miscellaneousaurus, it's just more protection because they're unaffected by your opponent's activated card effects. During the player's turn, being able to send this card from your hand to the graveyard. Then you can banish any number of Dino-type monsters from your graveyard, including this card, to special summon 1 Dinosaur-type monster from your deck with a level equal to the number of cards banished. It's really, really great for that resource setup. Just having all the different levels for the Dinowrestlers, even being able to hit level 2 or even just level 1 for the special summon of a Dinowrestler monster makes it vital for a lot of your different plays in the setup. You can't not run this card for that setup of your Dinowrestler cards. And that's it for the monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. I run 3 World Dino Wrestling, along with this card being searchable with one of our Dinowrestler monsters. While you control a Dinowrestler monster, each player can only attack with 1 monster during each battle phase. If your Dinowrestler monster attacks an opponent's monster, it gains 200 attack during damage calc only, and if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon 1 Dinowrestler monster from your deck, and you can only use each effect of World Dino Wrestling once per turn. So it's great for the setup. Once you have the 1 World Dino Wrestling on the field, you can rely on the other 2 just to be able to special summon other Dinowrestler monsters onto the field for you to use for your summons, depending on which level 1 you summon out. And I also want to run, I don't know where I put my 3rd copy of Fossil Dig. I have the 1 Upstart Goblin in here just to fill in for the spot. But Fossil Dig, add a level 6 or lower Dinosaur-type monster from your deck to your hand. You can search out any of the Dinowrestlers except for Pankratops since it's a level 7. But we have the option with World Dino Wrestling to search out Pankratops. So the Fossil Dig can just search out any of the other cards, even just, going for our tuner. If we want to go for the synchro play, you name it, any special summon or resource build, you need for your Dino Wrestler's Fossil Dig is a big help there for sure. I also run the 2 Foolish Burial Goods, being able to set up the field spell that much quicker in the graveyard if your opponent controls more monsters than you. Just remember that, being able to banish this card for the search. And I also run 2 Polymerization. I know Dino Wrestlers have their own the spell card for fusion summoning. I just really prefer Polymerization. It's just a more consistent card than the quick play spell they run, being able to get out the fusion monster that much more easily. If you wanted to run the spell for Dino Wrestler Fusion, you could take out the next of the one-of cards that I'm running for 1 copy of that. But you can still keep in the Polymerizations because this card is also searchable with cards like Fusion Recycling Plant, which we are also running 1 of, which we'll go over now when we go over the spells. For the 1-ofs, I run the 1 Ultra Polymerization. For paying 2,000 life points, which you don't really pay life much in this deck, you're able to fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck using 2 monsters you control, and then being able to special summon those cards back onto the field to use as resource for banishing this card gives us options not only for the fusion summon, but to summon out more link monsters using those cards for the play. I also run 1 Harpy Feather Duster for clearing my opponent's back row, Avarice for recycling cards in the graveyard that I don't banish with Miscellaneousaurus, the 1 Fusion Recycling Plant for the additional fusion setup and resource recycling. The Terraforming is for searching out either World Dino Wrestling or the Fusion Recycling Plant, depending on which one I might already have on the field for the resource to use. And then for the final spots for the 1-ofs, I run 1 Call by the Grave, the 1 Monster Reborn, and the 1 Reasoning, with all the different level monsters in the deck and the potential to set up a World Dino Wrestling in the graveyard as well. Makes Reasoning great for that special summon option, and then just being able to get an additional search if my opponent has more monsters on the field. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run 2 Dino Wrestler King T Wrestle. You need 2 or more Dino Wrestler monsters to summon this card. If this card battles, your opponent can activate spell traps until the end of damage step. Your opponent's monster cannot target monsters for attacks except for this one. At the start of your opponent's battle phase, you can target 1 attack position monster your opponent controls. This battle phase, your opponent cannot attack with other monsters unless that one has. And if it does not declare attack, destroy at the end of the battle phase. So with World Dino Wrestling as your field spell, you're basically setting up a wrestling match with your Dino Wrestler monsters and your opponent's monsters on the field, having to go up against the powerful King T Wrestle. The most difficult part is just summoning this card on the field because it is a 3 monster investment or 1 of the next monsters, which is Dino Wrestler Terra Parcorio. If you activate World Dino Wrestling, you can target 1 Dino Wrestler monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard as link material, you can target 1 Dino Wrestler monster in your graveyard, special summon it in defense position, but negate its effects. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of this turn, except for Dino Wrestler monsters, and you can only use each of the following effects once per turn. You're not limited much with this play for the fact that you're just going to use Miscellaneousaurus for its special summon from the graveyard resource and just protecting your Dino Wrestler monsters, but this is great for more and more setup for going into your King T Wrestle for when you activate World Dino Wrestling, being able to recycle a Dino Wrestler back to your hand for you to resummon out into the field, and then summon this card back out. For some of the other generic link monsters, I run the 1 Nightmare Phoenix, the 1 Asa the Earth Charmer, 1 Mrs. Radiant, the 1 Vert Anaconda for the Polymerization plays, Barricade Board Blocker for recycling our field spells, and the 1 Nightmare Unicorn, just for the good bounce effects as an additional link 3 in the deck. For the fusion monsters, I run 2 Dino Wrestler Chimera T Wrestle. You need 1 Dino Wrestler Link monster and 1 Dino Wrestler monster to make this card. If this card battles, your opponent cannot activate spell or trap cards until the end of damage step. If this card attacks a defense monster, you inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent, and your opponent's monsters cannot target monsters for attacks except this one. And if this card destroys a monster by battle, it gains 500 attack. If this card is destroyed by a card effect, destroy all attack position monsters of your opponent. So it's a true powerhouse in the term of fusion summoning. Being able to have 3,500 attack and gain additional attack alone makes it a true card to be reckoned with, but also with the final option being our synchro monster, which is Dino Wrestler Giga Spino Savate. This one needing a Dino Wrestler tuner and 1 or more and non-tuner monsters. So with this card, if it battles, your opponent can activate spell or trap cards until the end of damage step. If your opponent's monster cannot target monsters for attacks except this one, and once per turn, you can target 1 monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and if this card be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can destroy 1 card your opponent you control instead. So being able to get rid of your field spell or just other cards you have set up on the field to protect this card. If you have the synchro option or the fusion option available to you, both can be very strong depending on the resources you have available to summon out these cards. For the Xyz monsters, there are no Dino Wrestler Xyz, so just the 1 Evilzar Logia and the 1 Evil Zardoka. They're dragon monsters, but needing dinosaurs to summon them out can give you a negation and then a monster negation depending on which one you summon out onto the field to use. And the only time we would use Miscellaneousaurus for the summon of these cards, since we're restricted to Dino Wrestlers for all the other summons. And then as for some of your go-to plays in the deck, if you can rely on the Pankratops special summon, it's a big help for sure, just having an easy special summon on the field to rely on for your play. Then being able to summon out another one, like Marshall and Pella with just a normal summon, can give you the setup on the field and also graveyard resources when your opponent will attack you for damage. And then being able to rely on the summon of your tuner monster can then give you the setup you need for that special summon onto the field to go into. So when you summon out your tuner monster, your Colossalit with the special summon, if you control no monsters for the special summon, all you have to do is special summon this card first, controlling no monsters. Then if your opponent controls more monsters, then you can summon out Pankratops. And the normal summon being your Marshall and Pella would be one of the more generic ways to synchro out straight into your Link 3 King T Wrestle, but also relying on the Foolish Burial Goods for the play of setting up your World Dino Wrestling. And since you have to do this play, going second is the most ideal. Since your opponent controls more monsters than you banish this card to special summon one Dino Wrestler monster from your deck. So as long as they have more monsters than you do, you can special summon any of the Dino Wrestlers, a quicker way to get the Pankratops out onto the field, and then still following the additional special summon and also the normal summon of choice of any of the other Dino Wrestler monsters in the deck for the same play we spoke of before. Just don't forget also that your Colossalit is a level 2 and your synchro is a level 8, needing a level 6 or the adjusted number that we spoke of before, being your Eskiramenshi most of the time for that additional normal summon onto the field, along with the special summon of one of your other Dino Wrestler monsters. And also Reasoning being the setup we spoke of before. If you activate Reasoning and get the special summon out onto the field with your Reasoning play, as long as your opponent has more than one monster and you send World Dino Wrestling to the graveyard, not only will you get the special summon of choice of one of the Dino Wrestlers that you then reveal, but if you get the additional special summon, let's say you hit your Eskiramenshi for the special summon, having the level 6 option right there on the field, and then being able to banish World Dino Wrestling to get out your Colossalit will be the level 8 synchro play you need to go into your Spinosaurus there on the field, and not limited to the extra monster zone, having this option here, and then still able to use other Dino Wrestlers to get out your Link monsters in the extra monster zone. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy. I was definitely happy to finally update the Dino Wrestler deck again. Like I said, it felt like forever since the last update, and it definitely needed one since I missed out with the Chaos Impact release. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.